Hi, it's Sarah here from the Office Fixer, and today I've got a demo of Trello for you. I've done one fairly recently that was just a general tour of how you might use Trello and what you might use it for, but today I want to go into a little bit more detail about how you actually do things on Trello. So just to start off, just a reminder really of some of the things that you can use Trello for, some of the things that I use Trello for in my business. I have three main uses for Trello in my business. The first is to track my processes, so it helps me to manage my processes through, and I use it for things like my sales pipeline, and I'll show you that shortly. I also use it for planning, so planning events, planning content, again anything you need to keep a track of, and again I'll show you some of those in a bit. And the last main thing that I use it for, and I use this a lot with customers as well, is using it as a central portal for holding information. So somewhere that everybody within the team can go to as a central place when they need to find out how to do something. So that might be a staff manual, it might be an instruction manual, it might be a process guide that you're creating, and it can become, rather than those dusty files sat on a shelf that nobody's going to look at, it's somewhere that everybody can get to, whether they're in the office, out of the office, and it's one central place where all the information can be kept up to date. So those are the three main uses that I have for Trello. So tracking and seeing the processes through on a day-to-day basis, using it for planning things, and using it as a central sort of library store of information. And I'm going to go through and show you a board from each of those sort of different areas now and show you how to actually use some of the features on Trello. So we'll start with the first one about tracking processes, and the board that you can see in front of you now is is a copy of my sales pipeline board. And what you can see, if we just quickly go through the key features of Trello, Trello is a bit like the T-card boards that we used to have up in offices on the walls in the old days, showing my age here, where you could move the T-card, the piece of paper, from one column to another. And Trello is basically an online version of that. So we have the board, so the whole of the screen is the board, and you can have as many boards as you want, and that's how I'm going to show you a number of different boards. Then within a board you have the list, which is the vertical columns here, so we have a number of lists on this board, and then on the lists you have cards. So this little white one here is a card. So you have boards, you have lists on boards, and you have cards within lists. Okay, so as I said, this is a copy of my sales pipeline board, and effectively this is managing the process that I have for my sales pipeline. So each of the lists on this board is a different step in the process. So we'll come back to the first list in a moment. The first main step of the process is actually this second list. So I get an inquiry or an initial contact into the business, then I do an introductory call. I have a one-to-one meeting with them, and obviously I need to follow up and keep in contact with those people. It may be that they say, they're not ready for it now, so they might fall into the simmering column. I work with a different company to do call answering, so it may be that I've referred it through to them. Hopefully, when somebody says they want to go ahead, then they would get put into the customer setup column, and then when that's been complete, they fall into the customer column. And obviously, some of those inquiries won't turn into customers, and then they sit in the lost column. So that's how I'm using the lists to sort of replicate my process. And then what we do is we get a new inquiry and a new initial contact with somebody, we add a list to the board. Now I will do this manually now as a demonstration, but just to show the capabilities of Trello, I may add one manually, but I also will get them added automatically through Zapier, when I've done a different action in a different piece of software. That's part of my process, and it will automatically add a card. So one way or another, the card gets added into this initial inquiry column. So we'll just do one now. Okay, so just going back to this first list, I have this list is for these aren't the cards in here aren't inquiries that I'm following through. This is for other bits of information that I'm going to need within this board. So in this case, it's the prospect checklist. So my process, whilst those columns represent the key parts of the process, within those is specific actions that I want to do. And what you can do in Trello is create what they call checklists. And I have some pre-created checklists, which I'm storing in this card, in this first list. So that these are different steps in different stages of the process. So when the inquiry comes in, this is what I need to do to follow it through the process. Part of that is to have a call or a meeting with them, and I have another list which reminds me what I need to go through in that call or the meeting. And then I have a further list for if they do decide to become a customer, what I need to do to set them up as a customer. So they're kind of stored there just as a reference point. And what we can do when we create this new card, I can say, right, this is a new inquiry, so I need to add that checklist in that reminds me what I need to do. So if I go to the checklist button here, I can call it inquiry. Oops. Process, call it whatever you want, but then it allows you to copy items from another list. So I can, if I click on that drop down, it then says, well, in this board, you've already got a number of checklists. You want to use one of these checklists? And I'm going to go, yeah, actually, I want to use that inquiry process checklist that I had on there, because that is then, when I press add, just going to add me that templated process in, and I don't have to add those things in individually. And then as I go down, I can just tick off when I've done something. So as an example, I've arranged the one-to-one call, so I can tick that, and you can see then it starts to complete this bar. So I've then sent my bonbon video to confirm the call. So what I would do then is I would then move the card into the intro call, because I'm now waiting to do that call. So it's now in that stage of the process. Okay, I can add a comment in that the call is booked for the date, let's say the 27th of May. Save that, and it just there adds that comment into the list of activity at the bottom. So you can, every time you make contact with that person or try to call, leave a message, you send an email, you can copy it into there. Each time you have that contact, you can add it in as a comment, and you just get a timeline down here of all the things that have happened on the card, so you can see that. So you might put, for example, email sent, and you might copy that email in, and then you save it, so then you can see. And what it does is it automatically adds a time and date stamp on it. Now clearly though, those are both going to end up about the same time, and as you get further down, further away, it will give you more specific times and dates. But that keeps a record for you of all the contacts you've had. I would normally come into the description here also and add in maybe a phone number and their email address. And I might, I'd also put in a brief sort of what they wanted, where I met them. So I've got some information there just to remind me what it's all about. The other thing you can do on Trello is have labels. So in this particular board, I have labels for the different types of services, so I can see, I then just need to select a label, and I can see at a glance then how many inquiries I've got. It shows you the label there, how many inquiries I've got for each type of service, and I can easily sort of keep a track of that. And then once you've done the call, you might come in and add some comments on the call. You would tick off that you've done the call, You've posted the proposal, you've sent the on video. So now you're moving it into the follow-up column. So you know then that card needs to be followed up. So the last thing I want to show you on this board then, because obviously the key to your sales pipeline is keeping going with the actions, and you are able to add due dates. So you've sent everything through, and you need to follow up with them, but you need a reminder that you're going to follow up. So you're maybe going to do that 5 days after everything was sent through. So yeah, we'll put that down. You can you can change the time as well if you want, and save that. So that now gives you a due date. And what you will do then is you get a notification, it'll pop up when you're getting near that time and date. Now you can also see on the little card in the list, it does give you a summary of various bits. So you can tell from these lines here that the card has a description. That's the bit where we put in the phone number, the email address, and the brief description of what the inquiry was about. You can tell there's some follow-up comments on there from this little speech bubble, and it says 2. Checklist, you can see that 6 items out of 9 on the checklist have been done, and this is the reminder. You've put the due date, the reminder for the 3rd of June, and of course the label that you've selected. So you can see at a glance those various bits of information, and then obviously just click into the card so you can see the detail. So I find that really a really useful way to manage my sales pipeline. Trello is quite visual. A lot of people like me are visual, so it is a good way to sort of, as it says in the logo, in a single glance sort of see what's going on. Okay, so I'm now going to move on to the second type of board, or the second type of use that I use Trello for, and that's the planning. And so I'm going to go into my content planner board. And this board is the board that I use for managing the content of my weekly emails, of which this will be one. So again, I've got the process sort of mapped out via the lists. I've got the first list here with the templates and the checklists in as before, and then I start the actual process. That obviously the beginning of the process is to get ideas. Then I'm going to create drafts. When they're finalised posts, they fall into here, and then once they're published, they fall into the final list. So again, just showing you a few things that you can do with Trello. If you go into the ideas card, I've got a number of checklists in there for the different types of blog posts, weekly emails I could have. And when I get ideas of things I could write, I can just come and pop them into one of these lists. So they're not forgotten. I don't have to do it now, but they're not forgotten, they're captured. And then what I'll do is when I'm ready to do that one, we'll take the Trello demo as an example, because obviously that's what we're doing now. You can click into it rather than ticking it to say you've done it. If you click into it, you get the option to convert that to a card. So I'm going to convert that to a card. It's now gone off that list, so we know it's done in that respect. Close that card down and you'll see a new card's appeared in that ideas column. So we can now go into that card, and as before I have some checklists pre-done for the process of getting a blog post and a weekly email out there. So if I come into the card and click on checklist and then go to copy items, I'll just have to find the right one. So yeah, checklist for publishing and sharing a blog post. If I add that, that's all the different items that we need to do to get the blog post out there. Now you'll notice in this instance I've got some initials at the beginning of each one, and that's because one of my VAs helped me with this process, so we can tell easily who's responsible for each of the tasks on that list. And so in the same way, you can move that across. I could write, okay, that's my idea, I'm going to do that one, I'll move it into the drafts, and then that's when I might write, when I actually write what's going to go out into the email, I'll put it into this description area here. I'll tick my bits off. When I'm happy and it's finalised and ready to go, I'll move that then into the finalised posts section, and that's where Natalie will take over will do the things she needs to do as indicated on the checklist, and she'll tick those off. And when that's all been done and she's published the post, she will move it over into this list here. Another on the planning side, planning events might be, there's quite a lot of stuff you need to organise and keep a track of when you're planning events. I just wanted to show you a board that I've got, Christmas Journey, which is actually a personal board. So this is something I'm doing, nothing to do with my business, something I'm doing privately with a group of people. We're putting on an event, obviously around Christmas, as you can tell. But there's a team of people doing it, and there's quite a lot to organise. So I've created this board and I've shared it with the people in the team. And in this instance, we've got a number of areas that we're going to have to take people through the Christmas story. And there's a number of props needed at each area, costumes in some cases. We're going to need various number of helpers, there's scripts involved. So all of this stuff is tracked on here, and we can easily see, obviously it's only June as I do this, so we're a long way off Christmas, so we're just in the early stages of this, so not much has happened apart from us getting the outline down, but we can see all the things that are needed in that area as we go through the months and we get nearer. If I've sourced a gazebo, I can tick that off, and the other people in the team know they don't need to be worrying about sourcing a gazebo. We can all add comments in here, so we can keep a track of what's going on and speak to each other through the Trello board. So that's another use for planning, more event planning. Okay, while we're on these boards, I just wanted to show you about sharing boards with individuals. So I've mentioned that I'm working with a team of people on this board. I also mentioned that on the content, Natalie helps me get those out. So these boards are shared with the people that need to have access to them. And you simply go into the menu and you can add on members, and if they aren't already on Trello, they will receive an invite to set up an account on Trello, which is free. So it's not causing anybody any great pains, and then they will be able to see those boards and to be able to comment and move things around and do what's necessary. So you can add individual members onto the board, you can add as many as you want on, and that enables you to share individual boards with specific people. So your boards will naturally be private just for you until you share them with other people. We'll look at sharing them with teams of people shortly. Okay, so that's about planning. So the third area that I said I used Trello for is for libraries of information as a central portal that people can go to when they need information. And I use this particularly when I'm working, well, with my team and with other teams around process mapping and creating sort of how-to guides for businesses. So this becomes a central place where all that information is stored. So we'll pop into this board, which is the bookkeeping process board for my team. In this case, rather than the lists being stages of the process, the lists are different areas within the process. So within the bookkeeping process, we've got a list for sales invoicing, we've got a list for purchase invoicing, there's a list for expenses and mileage, for bank reconciliation. I think that's it on here, yeah. So they're different areas of the process. And then what I do when I'm creating processes, you can see I do that through a visual format of creating a flowchart, what I call a process map. And so I can add the process map onto Trello, and I can then add all the instructions and templates that people might need to actually follow that process through. So in terms of Trello and how that works, the first thing to show you is about attachments. Again, the menu on the right hand side here, if you want to attach something to a card, a document, you simply attach it, go to your computer and select it off your computer. You can also link it up to the various sort of file storage areas that you might use, and it will attach it as so, and you will get a list of all the attachments that you have. You will see that one of these attachments are basically exactly the same thing. This bottom one here is a PDF version, and the top one is an image version. And what happens on Trello, you have the option to allow any images uploaded onto a card to be used as a card cover, they call it, which means it's visual. You can see it without opening the card. So we can see on here, obviously, there's an image, and then we can click into it just in that top section, and it opens up into a bigger screen, so you can actually read what it says. Now, for the processes, and if you can take it off, remove the cover so that it doesn't show, and that it's still there as an attachment, but it's not showing as the cover. I'm going to put that back on. So the other thing you can do is you can connect through to other cards on Trello. So what I do in my processes is in various steps within the process, it may well refer to instructions or templates, instructions of how to do that particular task. And those instructions are created in other cards underneath the process. And what I can do in the card with the process on, rather than somebody going, oh yes, I need to see instruction 6, I'll close that down, now where's instruction 6? Oh, there it is. Whilst they're in this card, they can go, oh yeah, we need to go to instruction 6, click on that link, and it takes them straight through to that card. You just simply do that by clicking on share and more, and it gives you a link to that card. So every card has a link, and every board has a link. It's a link to the board. So you're able to link from board to board as well. If you were referring to something on a different board, you could link that through. I'm just looking, I don't think you can link through to lists. I'm just checking that. Okay, so within this board, I'm using attachments, and I'm linking through to other cards. Now, going back to the sharing, this type of board will generally need to be shared with a whole team of people. So in the left-hand menu here, boards, you can see these are all different teams that I have set up within my Trello account, and some of these are some of my customers, and some of these are different teams within my own that I've created within my own business. And what this allows me to do then is to share boards with specific sets of people. So if we click, come back off, at the top here you have the name of the board. You then have whether it's shared with a team, it'll have the name of the team, and then the setting. So if we click into the Office Fixer support team, which this board is part of, we can view the team page, and you can see all the boards then that are set up within this team, and you can also see the members of the team. So whilst boards can be shared with teams, they can also be shared with just specific people within those teams. So if we go back to that bookkeeping board, you'll see in the members that I have Lisa and Natalie and myself. Now, Lisa and Natalie have different roles within the team. And if we go to the bookkeeping process board, you'll see that it's set to private, and that means it's only visible to members of the board that are specified. And if you come over to the menu, we can see there that it's only actually visible to myself and Lisa. Now, Lisa is the VA who helps me with my bookkeeping, so she's the one who needs to see that. Natalie, who's also in this team, doesn't deal with bookkeeping, so she doesn't need to see this board. So I've set the setting to private and then specifically invited the right members. And if we go to the marketing process board, again set to private, but within the support team, and we'll go and have a look. It's just Natalie that it's shared with, because Lisa doesn't need to see it because she doesn't do the marketing stuff. Okay, just finally then to show you software instructions. So this board is my software instruction manual. So all the different sorts of software that we use within the business. This is far from finished, I have to say. This is a half completed board, but all the instructions on how to do different things within that software are all stored on here. So this is a board that the whole of the VA team has access to, because they will need to have a look at it at various points. So there's the team that it's been set up within, and you can see here that it's team visible, which means everybody within that team can see that board. It's not being made private and just available specifically to certain people. It's available to the whole team. So that's been a kind of bit more in-depth look at Trello and how to actually do some stuff on it, rather than just what you could use it for. Hopefully that's been helpful. I realise whilst that has been 25 minutes, it's quite a quick whiz through. If anybody's got any questions or a bit stuck with anything, then please do feel free to get in touch with me, and I will do my best to help you. I hope that's been useful.